Hello and welcome to the show. I am back on BeamNG Drive, taking more of your automation creations around the rather technical and punishing autocross course. We start with a vehicle from Axle X. This is the QT Time Attack concept. A 600 horsepower turbocharged V12 in this all-wheel drive, near 400 torque, and it weighs just 921 kilos. That is a big power-to-weight ratio. That is a very big power-to-weight ratio. Concern, of course, high-power turbo engines is the potential for turbo lag. If the power is not available out of the core, it doesn't matter how much the, peak power is in this car. If we can't actually use any of it, then we are in trouble. The good news is that this does... Oh, brakes have failed. Brakes have stopped working. I can't even downshift. The brakes are given up entirely. What the bloody hell went on there? Okay, well, it's certainly not engine braking because I was actually trying to mash a downshift and it wasn't going to let me do it. Anyway, the brakes just gave up. We'll give it another run. We won't count that as a first run. That's not a good sign. That is not a good sign. I don't know what it is with the... Sometimes the ABS on some of these cars has some big issues. There we go, that's more like it. I don't know whether it's... Whoa! And we've got over again. That's... Okay, that's something to be aware of. The back of the car is very, very wide. The back of this car is incredibly wide. I think... I'm not 100% sure, but I think this Porsche body style might be one of the... be able to get some of the largest tyres because of those madly exaggerated rear wheel arches, which is kind of good in some ways. I wonder if these overly large tyres are contributing. Again, we see that wheel wobble going on as we try to put the power down. The back of the car is very, very happy, kind of the back axle almost is very happy to go for a wobble, and I wonder if that is not helped by the massive, massive tyres. We should be pretty damn fast. Actually, we've got a little bit of wheel spin down there. I was going to say, we should be fast down there. Well, I'm going into third gear and it's spinning the wheels. It's all-wheel drive. Okay, well, the engine... Oh, I see the problem. The engine's not supposed to be there. I've never had the engine fall out of a car before. Hold on a second, can I actually... If I... Oh, it's still technically connected, but we've hit the thing so hard. Oh, that's a shame. I was really hoping the engine was going to be, like, completely and utterly on its own, removed from the car. No, it is still there, but we have actually just knocked the entire engine out of where it was supposed to be. That is a new one. That is a new one. I can't say we've ever seen that during this series. I've never seen that happen with an automation car. Okay, so we're having problems here. From brakes not working to, I mean, an unfortunate crash. This is not a particularly easy car to drive. As I said, now the power delivery is good here. With 600 horsepower, even in second gear, the car is more than happy to go. No, I think we'll probably still leave it in first. However, it is... Yeah, more than happy to get out of these corners. Now, that is good news. It is a bit understeery. That front end doesn't want to get turned in too well. And now, normally I'll say I don't mind a little bit of understeer as long as we don't get the oversteer to go with it. We aren't oversteering through these corners. We've got to be careful on the big acceleration zones. This car is more than powerful enough to have some big issues. We're going to run pretty damn wide there. Let's try and slow it down. I was going to see how fast we could get. I'm still slightly concerned about the brakes when we come to these really big stops, especially this one up here. This is the biggest braking zone we'll have. It's from, well, I mean, 90-something, 91 miles an hour in this case. Okay. I say 90. I was kind of presuming that this thing was going to be mighty down that straight, and so that would be why it's in the 90s. It's unusual for cars to get 90 down there. This has been a little bit more of a cautious run, but it kind of needed it. It's kind of needed it. Now, be aware of how wide the back of this car is. Far across the line. It's a 21.2. Oh, that thing is not difficult. Not easy to drive. It is very difficult. It is very uncooperative around this course. Yeah, there's a lot of power, but the control to go with it is somewhat like we could see. Oh, another massive brake failure off at turn 1. just didn't stop. Okay, again, we were in a... Oh, I completely stuffed that one up. I didn't even get off the line that time. I've tried all sorts of things just to stop. There we go. Now it has actually got slowed down in time. This is... It's not undrivable in the conventional sense, just something's weird with it. Something's not right with the brakes on this car. Something's not right with the brakes. I wonder if, just looking at it, the axle wobble that we have going on, I wonder if that confuses the ABS. Because we had a lot of axle wobble going down to turn 1. We had a lot of axle wobble going on down to turn 1. And I wonder if the axle's wobbling around, if that's making the ABS think the wheels are locking up. So it's releasing the brakes, so basically your brakes are stopping working. Actually, I think I figured it. I think I figured it, because there's a couple of times in previous runs where I've seen little scary moments. That is what's doing it. So if the car has too much axle wobble, the ABS just fails to work properly. I'm glad I figured out what was causing the random braking issues. And in this car it is very noticeable. I guess there could be minor, because yeah, down here we're absolutely fine braking, but other points, yeah, we've sussed it. So if your car has massive axle wobble, it's going to have... Well, funnily enough, if your car has massive axle wobble, it's probably going to have a tough time in general. But there are even more concerns with it. At least now I know what's causing it. I can try and deal with it. It's another 21.3. I'm pretty sure we knocked the engine out again, but there we go. Not, again, at the end of the day, not a bad time overall, but some pretty sizable difficulties with that vehicle. Our second rather excited looking car comes from Ram McPhee. This is the Ram Arrow number 1. It is powered by a turbocharged flat 6. It is all-wheel drive, 428 horsepower, just shy of 300 torque in this. So power-wise, torque-wise, not too shabby whatsoever. It is also pretty light, 870 kilos. It's not the lightest car today though, but it is a fairly light vehicle. Short wheelbase is good. Mighty wing, pretty impressive. Sort of centre of mass might be a little high. I think if we clip a wall anywhere in this car, we are going over, but we will have to wait and see as to what it's going to do. Yeah, that's going to go straight over. Nope. Oh, I tried to save it and tried to get ready to turn in. Just trying to get it to the right gears, and it did not work. It did not work. Now, the ABS might have issues if we've got a wheel off. We might have trouble getting around the course. What is it doing? What are you doing, car? You're trying to eat yourself. The good news is, even with it on 3 wheels, this thing is incredibly grippy through the corners. Even with 3 wheels. We're probably not going to go for a 3-wheeled record. It's struggling too much. I think the car did like a 120, the high 120 with 3 wheels at some point. Admittedly, it didn't have to do the whole run on 3 wheels. Yeah, the good news with this car is that the actual grip is remarkable. The amount it's getting turned into these corners, even in this configuration, it's doing pretty well. So, I do have some hopes for this vehicle when it comes to a run without it falling apart, without it crashing. The brakes don't seem to have issues, although it's very difficult to tell when you've got a wheel down. Can we go quicker than? I mean, we've had, is it 140s? I think the Vampire. Was it 44 for the Vampire? Oh, come on. We're not going to be the slowest car because that was over 2 minutes. I think it was the Vampire and the DLW. It was the front-wheel drive, like a normal, regular 90 horsepower road car, essentially. Oh, we're in the 140s. Nope. Really struggling to steer through the narrow gaps. Although that has actually got rid of the wheel, which makes life so much better for me. Come on, little car. Come on, little car. We can do it. We can... Oh, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it in the sub 140. We might actually set the slowest time around here. It will get, of course, other runs. And... Oh, it still beat the EOS. It still beat the 2-minute mark. Okay. Right, so... It's not quite a... 3-wheeled record, so I've got to really spam through the gears because it's very, very short gear ratios. Although they are mostly useful gear ratios with a lot of bodywork wobble. Oh, don't have more axle wobble. Don't have more axle wobble, please. I could really do without axle wobble. That did seem more bodywork than the wheels flapping. I can deal with flappy bodywork. Whoa, okay, second gear is going to probably have to be where it's at in this. First to second transition, you just waste so much time. Either you're slow or you're sideways. Both are wasting time. So I'm thinking I'm voting second gear out of these corners. This is more like it. This is more like it. Yeah, second gear out of the corners works. There is plenty of go in the car. There is maybe the faintest little bit, little wait for the turbos to kick in when you are in second. But again, I'm losing less time. I'm happier doing that than the trying to trying to get the shift and not have the car go massively out of control. Speed-wise, 85 miles an hour. At the end of the day, it's not got the 700 horsepower that we have seen from a few vehicles in this series. It is light, yes, but it's not the power to weight ratio isn't that much better, but it's pretty good, pretty competitive in terms of fastest straight line speed. But down there, 20.0 for the Ram Arrow, and I think there is a little bit more time in that car to come. Got to get everything right. Now I know what gears I want to be in everywhere. I know what I think. I hope. Right, so let's get through the gears up towards the first corner. It's so nice having a car that I mostly trust to get slowed down. I'm still a little concerned when you see that flapping bodywork that might be a wheel going to give me some grief. But mostly trust. It's certainly nowhere near as bad as our previous car. And around these next hairpins we go. Yeah, grip-wise, we're pretty good. Short wheelbase will always be helping. Actually, through these turns, the potentially high centre of mass, it's not really too bad. I don't think it's quite as good as some of the cars we have had in terms of handling. It's not up there with the Novas and so on. Perhaps wouldn't quite expect it. Again, it's not got perhaps the same sort of body style. It's certainly not got the power of those cars. Here we go. Let's get down this next straight. Little bit later on the brakes. A little too late, actually, on the brakes. Although we can get away here. That's one of the few places where you can get away with being wide under braking. You can still get a half-decent exit. Oh, that was pushing our luck there, though. And we are heading around these final couple of corners. Can I go sub 20 with it? Oh! So close to 20.2. Very similar. Final couple of runs there. Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all in terms of its pace. Perhaps not quite the handling of the fastest cars. And around this course, well, you're going to notice the difference. Our third vehicle today, this comes from Groundhog 2010. It is the Anti-Portal Blue Skies FailRace edition. It is a rear-wheel drive i3, a turbocharged i3, but this is essentially a K car. I can't actually remember the engine size now, but it's 66 horsepower, 58 torque. It is pretty light at 678 kilos, although not as light as the K car that ran in the initial episode. Let's face it, it's not going to be challenging the 16s and 17s around here, but despite its fairly low power output, this might still be able to go very, very well. Being so light, we should have very good handling, we should still have some pretty good acceleration. It's unlikely to challenge the fastest rear-wheel drive car, the mighty table-winged Porsche, that did have considerably more power and surprisingly good traction. But it might go, well, I don't know, maybe below a 130. That's probably asking quite a lot, but I'm gonna see what I can do. I can only do my best with the vehicle, and this is a fun little thing to drive already. I am liking it. It's quite lively. It's plenty grippy. I can jump on the throttle almost immediately. Little bit of oversteer from the car. Well behaved under braking. It's kind of nice to have a car well behaved. And around this next corner, you know what? I'm just going to stick it out there. We've got more than enough grip to get away with going exploring over there. Straight line speed's not terrible. You know, it's up to 60 miles an hour. Considering how little power this car has in comparison to a lot of the vehicles that have gone around here, we've seen cars with considerably more power not go much faster than that. And then this is going to be theoretically better through the corners, although I've pushed that a little bit too hard there. Little bit wide. It is a sub 130 on its first run. 29.4. 66 horsepower, remember, in this car. 66 horsepower in this. That's pretty damn respectable. That's pretty damn respectable. And as I've said before with this series, I love the, you know, interesting cars. Not everything's using necessarily the maximum of the specifications for this. They're seeing what some of these different cars, some of these perhaps more, I say, sensible or just different builds fare compared to the ultra series. I say the ultra series, the ultra competitive vehicles. And it does give you an interesting leaderboard, although I've got a little bit too much oversteer there, not quite what I wanted. We have got away with it, managed to bring it back through the next corner, probably just a little bit of time. But yeah, I'm liking this car. I'm liking this car very much. This is another one that a one-make race series with these would be exquisite, I feel. A one-make race series with with this car. It would be kind of like the Aussie racing cars. It's about the right sort of size. Probably with slightly less power, to be honest. How much? They're about 140, I think, the Aussie racing cars. I know they're a bike engine, decent bike engine in them. But yeah, it's just miles and miles of grip. It might have to be on, like, go-kart track. Oh, this on go-kart. Yes, that's what you need. These on a go-kart track. That would be exquisite, because on a big track you'd probably be flat out everywhere. Like, even the hairpins, this would probably be flat out around, because it's doing about 60 miles an hour everywhere and has the grip to take 60 miles an hour through just about every But yes, on a go-kart track, an entire field of these, that would be a decent sized go-kart track as well, not like an indoor kart track. Although it'd be fun on an indoor kart track. I'm getting distracted slightly. 27.7. That's really not far off. I mean, that's beaten. I think that beat the Hell Climb car. I can't remember that. So I think that's a 28 if I remember rightly. Just lots of grip. Lots of grip, and while not a lot of power, easily accessible. I mean, it doesn't feel so horrendously underpowered going around here, because I guess it's light enough to get away with it. It's light enough and it's usable just about everywhere. Maybe second gear is going to be what we want out of these corners. I think we can carry the momentum. We have the grip to get away with all of that. Let's try and cut back to the inside for the exit. A little bit of a late apex. Kind of works through some of these corners, especially when you've got only a limited number of runs, as I do here. If you've overdriven the entrance a little bit, you can sort of make up mostly the time that you might have lost if you've done things a little bit wonky. Ah, yeah, this is this is an excellent car. This might be another one of my favourite just car to drive so far. As I said, it's never going to challenge. It's 10 seconds off the fastest around here. But it's also, in fact, the fastest car is over 10 times the horsepower of this. The fastest car is putting out some 700 or some. Oh no, we have had some cars 700. I can't remember what the fastest car's got actually. That might be nearer to 300 or 400. But we've had cars with 7 times the power as this, and or 10 times the power as this. Sorry, and this is really doing well in terms of its stage time. And we are running up towards the finish line. It is 27.6. So fraction faster, pretty similar on those final runs. That is a really, really nice car. That is a really nice car, and that's amazing stuff for 66 horsepower. Essentially a proper K car. That one. That's, yeah, an excellent vehicle. Our final vehicle today, this comes from Blazer. It is called the Cancan, an all-wheel drive i3 turbocharged vehicle, 366 horsepower, just over 300 torque, a little bit over 1,000 kilos. Power to weight ratio, perhaps not quite the greatest, although that is still not a bad amount of power. There is a mighty wing. I mean, it's not quite the table, but it's a pretty damn impressive wing, nevertheless. My main concern with this car would be, yeah, the weight is a little greater than we have seen from some of the fastest cars. You can get away with 300 and mid 300 horsepowers, but to do that, you're probably going to want to be a few hundred kilos lighter. Although you never know, if the car's got outstanding grip, you might be able to make up some time there. It's nice and consistent. I like that about a car. After the first two, very, very difficult to drive. Well, first one very difficult to drive. Second one a little bit scary to drive. We've gone to an incredibly high grippy, low power car, and this thing's not too shabby. It is perhaps a little understeery ultimately. It might struggle getting quite the same speed through some of these corners. However, oh, there's a bit more understeer through there. However, yeah, at least it is consistent, even with that mighty wing. It doesn't really like having to go to first if I can avoid it. What are we doing speed-wise? 82, a little bit more of a judder from this car as well. We're seeing more juddering from vehicles than I was expecting. I can't say any of the vehicles I've ever built on automation and put in Beam have had the juddering issue. I'm not quite sure what causes it. I am sure it's not what you want your car to be doing. That's quite nice through those final corners. 22.8. I mean, I wouldn't have said there was huge amounts of time lost in all of that. There wasn't a huge amount of time lost. We can potentially go fast. I actually really like the front of this car. I really like the front of this car. Someone's made a good use of those headlights that I can never get to work very well on anything. It's a very nice car. I mean, the wing does make it very silly. Overall, it's a pretty good-looking car, this one. Maybe with a slightly more sensible wing if you were to be building a more sensible sports car. I mean, for FailRace is excellent, but yeah, not a bad-looking car. I think it is just it's a tad too heavy with a tad too much understeer, and then maybe not quite enough power to really make up for it, because we are struggling through these corners. And out the other side we go. We're going to have to be we're a little bit wide on the way in. That can kind of work, though. You can get to the exit. Yeah, you can kind of get away with that, provided you are ready for it. Sometimes you end up out wide over there without quite being prepared, and that's when you're in trouble. If you have intentionally gone out there, you can get away with a better line into the next corner. Yeah, we're just struggling with that front end grip. There's just not enough of it. Around some more hairpins we go, and again, as I said, I like my cars being planted, and I do like that this thing is predictable, but there is a time when you definitely need more front end grip. When you're around an autocross course, you really want that front to be getting turned in. I'm not sure whether that's set up on the car, whether it be tyre related, or whether it just be the weight compared to... Alright, it's a bit strange saying a car that weighs only a smidge over 1,000 kilos is heavy, but in this, it kind of is. It's another 22.8 for the... It's now not as prettier a car. Pretty consistent runs. I mean, could I go a sub 22 in this? I'm not sure where I'm going to find the time. I'm not sure, even if I get everything right, I'm not sure if I'm going to find the time anywhere. Like, power delivery, not too bad in this. Second gear, mostly working. Got a little bit of a strange lockup going on there. Not quite sure how that one worked. But, yeah, the engine is smooth enough. It's getting that power down. It's just trying to get around the corners. I mean, it's not wanting to behave itself. I say not wanting to behave itself, it just doesn't want to get turned in. And you're losing bucket loads of time through all of these corners with that. Again, do what I can with the car. You can get away, if you've got the ludicrous power out of the corners, you can get away sometimes with being a little bit slower. Ultimately, you want to be very fast out of the corners and very quick through them. That's how you're going to get to the top of the leaderboards. This, as I said, nice car to drive, nice balance, good fun car to drive, but ultimately not quite that front end grip. Less wobbling this time from the vehicle in the braking zone, which is nice. Maybe second gear will work out of there, indeed it does. Up towards that time, there's more wobbling down to that hairpin, which seems unusual to me, but there we go. Through the next section we go, run across the line. Oh, 22.0, didn't quite get a 21. 22.0 though. And we found 0.8 of a second on that final run. It was a good run. It was a good run from the car. There's a bouncy wheel. I mean, see the massive tyres we got on this one. That's full pushrod suspension all around on this thing. Yeah, very pretty car. Slightly less pretty after I've crashed it. With a mighty wing. Easy to drive. Easy to push. A little bit too much A little bit too much understeer, whether that be by weight or by setup or whatever. However it is, just can't get the front end turned in to a lot of these corners. On to our leaderboard, and it is the Ram Arrow that will go fastest of the day. It'll go into a 10th place, so on 20.0, only a fraction down on 9th. It is all very close, and it's only likely to get closer. Hell, from 9th to 17th place, they are covered by 7/10 of a second. So yeah, pretty good time from that car. In 18th place, we find the QT Time Attack concept. That's 21.2. While a very powerful car, and there were moments of it being very quick, there were also moments of the brakes not working, the wheels threatening to wobble and fall off. A bit terrifying, if I'm honest, trying to drive that. A little further down, in 22nd place, we find Blazer's Cancan. Again, not a bad time. That's 122. A little bit heavy / a bit too much understeer. Whatever might be the cause of the understeer, it just couldn't get the front end turn into these corners. And yeah, once that happens, you struggle to make up time around this course. It doesn't have the brutal power of some cars to rectify it. We do have to go down to 30th to find the anti-portal blue skies, but bearing in mind that that car had just 66 horsepower, that's a damn impressive time. It's only 0.3 of a second off the Hell Climb. Yeah, the Hell Climb had its handling issues again with wheel wobble, but that car was, I mean, almost 10 times as powerful. And there is 0.3 of a second separating them. It's not the fastest rear-wheel drive car. No, that is a table wing special in a 22.7. But again, we're only 0.4 down on the FRR1. That's a mighty impressive time. It beats by 2.5 seconds the Sakura, the car that was similar lines K car. That did have 140 horsepower. It was front-wheel drive, and maybe the front-wheel drive not helping it around here. That, though, is going to be it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.